Hello and Happy New Year. You made it. 2020 is over and 2021 is here. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and were able to take some time off and get some rest, but it is time to hit the ground running, and we're kicking off this new year of the MyCom Church Marketing Podcast by finally talking TikTok. Thank you to everybody for listening. My name is Dan Wunderlich. I'm a United Methodist pastor, and let me begin by acknowledging that some of you just asked your podcast player, finally? What do you mean by finally talking TikTok? For some of you, TikTok may be new on your radar. You've seen the commercial with the one dude drinking cranberry juice while riding a skateboard and lip syncing to Fleetwood Mac, or you've seen news headlines about it possibly being banned in the United States, and then perhaps you wondered why an app that's just a bunch of teenagers dancing would cause such a stir. For others of you, this feels an awful lot like Snapchat. It's the cool thing the kids are into right now, but eventually one of the bigger social networks will steal its features and it'll all go away. Or it falls in the category of things you'd like to learn about someday, but your plate is already overloaded, especially with the likely exponential increase in the importance and just sheer volume of work responsibilities that happened in 2020. And for likely a very small slice of you, you are asking, yeah, Dan, TikTok is a big deal. Why did it take you all so long to get to this? Well, I'll begin by saying/admitting that today's topic was not the result of popular demand. In fact, after checking in with the social media folks at Communications, I learned that almost none of you are asking for help with TikTok. The few requests they do get usually come from youth programs at very large churches. But as is the case, especially in areas like tech and digital ministry and even culture making to a degree, Dan speaking, I personally believe the church is behind. TikTok is exponentially growing in its influence. And while the universal takeaways of today's podcast is not that you need to start a church TikTok account, I think you do need to know what it's all about. And perhaps one of the biggest bright spots of the chaos that was 2020 was that so many of us, and I do count myself as part of this us, so many of us proved that we can adapt and learn something new when the mission of our ministries depends on it. Now, does the mission of your ministry depend on TikTok? Nah, probably not. Definitely not the total mission, but it could potentially play a role in the future of your mission. And even if you don't end up becoming a content creator on TikTok, I'm here to make the case today that it is absolutely worth your time to know what's going on this platform. We're going to begin with a brief intro to TikTok, and I'll give you 10 facets of TikTok that I think make it worth at least checking out, if not jumping right in. TikTok is the conceptual successor to a handful of apps like Vine and Snapchat. It's video first, but the length of the video is limited, currently 60 seconds, although they are experimenting by giving some creators the ability to make videos up to 3 minutes long. So perhaps extended lengths will come. So TikToks, of course, are longer than Vine's 6 seconds, but they still need to pack a quick punch. And while you can shoot and edit footage outside of the app and bring it into TikTok, it has one of the most developed set of video editing tools you'll find natively inside a social media app, from filters to effects to text and so on. Some have seen it as an evolution of the stories format first pioneered by Snapchat. It's the literal successor to an app you may have vaguely heard about a few years ago called Musical.ly. This app was all about lip syncing to music, and it offered an earlier version of the creative tools currently inside of TikTok. ByteDance, the owners of TikTok, essentially saw the tools and understood that you could do so much more than just make homemade music videos. And so they acquired Musical.ly and folded it into both TikTok and the Chinese version of TikTok called Douyin. And though there is a separate Chinese version of the app, the parent company ByteDance is a Chinese company. And it's the nationality of the ownership that has led TikTok not just into entertainment headlines, but global news back in 2020. The Trump administration called for ByteDance to sell the U.S. segment of TikTok by early December 2020, or they'd be banned from operating in the United States. Now, I'm recording this in mid-December, past the stated deadline, and the latest news is that while the threat of a ban has not been removed, the U.S. government is currently choosing not to enforce it as negotiations continue. Now, we're not going to dig too deeply into those details today, but the conflict largely revolves around privacy, the collection and use of data, which honestly is an issue on every social media app. However, the concern certainly is amplified by the fact that the company is not based in the United States like other social media giants like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This foreign ownership has also given rise on occasion to national security concerns, which is why it has been banned amongst military members and certain departments of the US government. And before we jump into some of the potential upsides of TikTok, I do want to begin by acknowledging that there are some not so great aspects to TikTok. However, most of them are challenges that every social network must fight at some point or another, such as bullying, exploitation of minors by adults with awful motives, and the presence of toxic content, such as racist or sexist trends that take off and make the rounds. Perhaps the story that gave me the most pause in 2020 was when a video of a man who had committed suicide during a Facebook Live broadcast, that video made its way onto other platforms. I mean, for reasons that are difficult to fathom, there were circles of people that were reposting and promoting this video on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. But unlike those other platforms, it's much easier to sort of be surprised by a video on TikTok. Its main page is a never ending stream of auto playing sound on videos that you scroll through without really being able to see what's coming up next. Thankfully, I had read about the video earlier in the day and I just stayed off of all social media for the rest of the day as the platforms were working to get the video removed. But it was certainly not a good day for any of the social networks. And as I said, the primary issues with TikTok are not unique to the platform or new to social media in general. However, with TikTok being a newer company, they're still working on how they best fight these issues on their platform. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the ownership being based outside of the United States creates a trust factor for some when choosing to join the community and give access on their devices. With all that having been said, these issues do not seem to have been much of an impediment to its exponential growth. Way back in 2018, it passed Uber to become the most valuable startup in the world. In the fall of 2020, actually, as part of the legal proceedings with the US government, it was revealed that TikTok has over 100 million monthly active users in the United States and over 689 million globally. Now, yes, that is nothing compared to Facebook or Instagram, but believe it or not, that puts it ahead of services like Spotify and Twitter. And in terms of app downloads in 2020, TikTok is either number one or number two, depending on which list you look at. And the lists where TikTok wasn't the number one, it fell only behind Zoom, which is totally a 2020 specific thing. TikTok exploded in both size and popularity during the 2020 quarantines, and it seems to have a bunch of momentum. In order to understand the momentum, we first kind of need to understand how a social network ticks. Get it? Get it? Ticks? TikTok? Anyway, with all social networks, the content is user generated. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, none of them are really content producers, at least not primarily. Certainly, Facebook has tried with their Facebook Watch. They want to become a Netflix like studio with original content. But the feeds we're all familiar with and the features we think about when we're scrolling social media, that's all user generated content. So the social networks provide two primary things. The first is the creative canvas. That's primarily the tools and the limits. Is it a text based, image based, or video based platform? Which do you offer, and which are the main ways people choose to communicate? What are the limits of length or size or duration? What creative tools do you offer in the app, from camera options to filters to effects to design elements to soundtracks? What tools for engagement do you offer, such as liking, commenting, replying, or messaging? And what about portability? Can you upload content that was created outside of the app, or do you have to make it in the app? And how easily can you share content from inside of the app to places outside of the app? In this arena, TikTok shines. As I mentioned earlier, many social media commentators see it as the most developed social network, literally taking the best parts of other apps and either including them or building on them in a new way. It certainly has an initial learning curve, but it's not that steep. And once you get a handle on it, you can create pretty fairly advanced videos rather easily. And at least up to this point in early 2021, while there are people who put out fully produced videos that were created outside the app on professional level video editing programs, it is firmly within the culture and trends of TikTok to make your videos inside the app itself. And thanks to the availability to save drafts, you can play around with the tools without ever actually needing to post or even finish a video. The second and arguably more important thing that social networks provide is an algorithm. We're all familiar with that word thanks to Facebook. And in fact, we've done entire episodes of this podcast in the past on Facebook's newsfeed algorithm. This is the formula that decides what you, the user, will see next. Algorithms are double edged swords. They can show you things you would have never found yourself that you end up loving, and they can also create and serve up content that make echo chambers and foster division and even radicalization. The algorithm is the literal secret sauce of TikTok. It is incredibly smart and responsive, and it's super quick. So, yes, when you first download the app, you are going to see your fair share of people dancing because you're new. It doesn't know anything about you, and it shows you the kind of content that appeals to the masses. But if you take the time, especially early on, to train the algorithm, by giving it as much feedback as you can, you'll find yourself with a completely different and likely much more personalized and enjoyable feed rather quickly. See something you don't like? Swipe past it before it's finished. See something you really have no interest in? Long press on your screen and hit not interested. See stuff you like? Hit that heart button or watch it through a couple times, which is not hard with the videos all largely being under 60 seconds. Hit the share button to either download a copy to your device or send it to a friend or post it on another social media network. And of course, you can always follow creators whose content you'd like to see regularly. And while every social network has an algorithm, we're usually talking about how it chooses which friends to show us and what order to show them in. In fact, so much of the struggle with Facebook today isn't even how to reach new people, but how to get the people who are already following you to see your stuff, which is crazy. But it's actually discovery. TikTok's ability to surface new content from people you aren't following that is truly amazing. In fact, TikTok has so much confidence in this aspect of their algorithm that it's actually their discovery feed called the For You page that is front and center. When you launch the app, you have to swipe to another screen to see a feed of people you follow. Now, they get mixed into the For You page, but it's all about finding and discovering new people. This kind of discovery is what makes music services like Pandora and Spotify such a pleasure to use. They learn what you like and they find you things they think you'll like that you haven't listened to on your own yet. And the sign of a truly advanced algorithm is that it can successfully make recommendations across genres. So, in these music apps, say you like country music, it's one thing to find you more country artists you may never have heard of. It's another thing to find artists you end up enjoying in indie rock or soul or even electronic music. In my experience, TikTok seems to be able to do this in the video realm, and it has led me to find and enjoy things I would never have thought to look for on my own. Now, why does all this matter? First, this is a sign to me that barring political or legal interventions, TikTok is not going to go away anytime soon. When Snapchat was the hot new thing, what made it unique were the stories format and a set of tools that were, let's admit it, easy to rip off. They were added to Instagram and Snapchat plummeted almost immediately. Well, you may have noticed that Instagram introduced Reels a little while back, which is a direct ripoff of TikTok. People are using it, sure, but it has not made a discernible dent in TikTok for the same reason that IGTV hasn't put a dent in YouTube. Sure, the format and the tools, while well designed, are there, but they aren't actually what hooks people in those other apps. What makes TikTok and YouTube work for its users is the algorithm. And a side note, TikTok has the very real potential to hook you in. If you do want to check it out, as crazy as this sounds for a platform made up of 60 seconds or shorter videos, give yourself a good 30 minutes at least. Back in the early part of 2020, TikTok actually paid some of their top creators to film TikToks, inviting viewers to take a break, put the app down, take a walk, or if you were watching at night, to put the phone down and go to bed. And I admit I saw an embarrassingly large number of those late at night during the quarantine. There is just something about using this app and the way the algorithm works that hooks you in. So the first reason TikTok matters is because it isn't a flash in the pan, but rather a rapidly growing and influential social network. The second reason it matters is that perhaps more effectively than any other social network, the TikTok algorithm surfaces content and facilitates connections between people who genuinely share interests. If the videos you make are genuinely appealing and meaningful to a set of people, TikTok will try harder and smarter than most of its competitors to help you connect. You don't need to be a celebrity. You don't need to have thousands of followers. You don't need to spend money on boosted or promoted posts, at least at this point. Obviously, this becomes more of a challenge as TikTok grows and the volume of content increases. But at the moment, you, and yes, I mean you, whether you're a Gen Z social media intern or a retired pastor who still listens to church marketing podcasts for some reasons, you can make an impact in real people's lives. Well, now that we have a foundation for TikTok, I want to share with you a list of some key aspects you should know if you want to give it a shot as a viewer or a creator. The first and perhaps most important aspect to know about TikTok is that its foundation is entertainment. Now, you can build on that foundation. There's plenty of education, how to's, even political commentary and activism to be found, but it has to be engaging in some form or fashion. Humor and comedy are big, as is, of course, the dancing. One of the trends throughout the pandemic was actually doctors and nurses doing TikTok dances while displaying facts and stats about COVID or tips for staying healthy on the screen around them. This means TikTok might not be the best platform for sermon clips, but if a traditional journalistic institution like the Washington Post can find a way to be funny and interesting on TikTok, so can you. Second, because TikTok is great at connecting people with shared interests, it pays to have a niche. Some of the accounts I follow include a Hollywood prop master with an affinity for dad jokes, a comedian who regularly impersonates the weather in Florida, a gardener who relates the care of plants to care for self, and a 22-year-old Irish farmer who films herself taking care of her cows. If you want to start creating content for TikTok, decide what you want to accomplish first. Just filming whatever comes to your head and having 10 different types of videos is not going to work as well as getting really good at one or two types of content. Which leads to number three. If you're going to use TikTok for ministry, you actually have to use it for ministry and not to promote your ministry. I have been a squeaky wheel railing on and on all throughout this podcast about making your social content more than just telling people when and where to show up. And especially because TikTok is more interest based, unlike a network like Facebook, which is built on friendships first and heavily factors in things like location, or at least allows you to pay to target people in a general area. Posts that try to get someone to attend an event or click off the app to another website simply isn't going to work on TikTok. People are on TikTok to be on TikTok. If they like your content, they might seek you out on another platform like Instagram or YouTube, but they aren't going to close TikTok to follow some call to action like going to your website or Facebook page. Do the actual ministry there in your TikTok videos rather than trying to talk them into going somewhere else. That leads to point four. TikTok is people focused, not brand focused. You will see the occasional account that is the TikTok form of recipe videos where you see ingredients and cooking equipment and just a set of hands. And there are accounts that repost viral content, sports highlights, and stuff like that. But even for bigger brands, their videos feature people. This is not the platform for the video equivalent of verses of scripture on top of a photo of a mountain. If you do choose to make an organizational account for your ministry, it doesn't necessarily need to be the same person on camera every time. You can have a team, but there need to be people in your videos. But especially if you're maybe a pastor who's thinking about jumping in, I would highly recommend just making a personal account. You can always reference your church in your bio or captions or hashtags. And I'm not encouraging this because I think you should try to become TikTok famous as a pastor, but because again, the platform is focused on people over brands. Now, point five might dampen some of your growing enthusiasm, although I did allude to it already, so you should have it in the back of your mind. And that is that targeting by location is much harder on TikTok. So, yes, I am a Floridian and I have discovered and followed a guy who impersonates the weather here in Florida. And if part of your niche is leaning heavily into your city or region, you may be able to make connections with people in your area. But especially if your video content is more general ministry, more general commentary about scripture or applying it to our lives, even if you use location based hashtags and the like, TikTok is going to show your posts to a much wider audience. So you really need to decide, is your intent to reach just the people who might join you in person someday? Or are you making disciples no matter where they live? Now, I'm not here to judge or even influence which you should choose, but if you want to be hyper local, then TikTok maybe isn't the most effective tool. That being said, aspect six is the portability of TikToks. I mentioned earlier that you can download TikToks for saving or sharing or reposting elsewhere. So, an approach that you could take is to create and post content on TikTok that serves people wherever they live, and then download those videos and repost them on platforms where you have or can make more local connections. It doesn't just have to be one or the other. And it is largely this freedom of sharing that allowed TikTok content to spread beyond the app and ended up fueling its rise. Point seven is something I've mentioned multiple times, and that's just how robust the content creation tools are. And this is yet another reason why you may want to make your videos on TikTok, even if you focus on reposting them somewhere else. You're not going to find a better set of tools for filming and editing videos for social media than inside of TikTok at the moment. There are filters and effects. They can be applied both as you film and after you film. I mentioned before you can save videos in your drafts, which means you can work on a video over time. And after just spending a little bit of time on the app, you will likely see some incredibly creative things that people do with these tools, and it can teach you and influence the way that you use those tools. The most popular effect on TikTok in 2020 was the green screen effect. And it's basically like a virtual background on Zoom. It allows you to display a photo or video behind you while you talk or sing or point or perform. Some people did use them as virtual backgrounds, maybe giving a vibe or acting like a set for their skit. But other people used it almost like a presentation in the background to point to or illustrate what they were talking about, or even to comment on what was going on in the picture or video. There's also a voiceover feature, which allows you to add narration or other sound effects that don't need to be captured as you film. And finally, while putting text on your video is nothing new or groundbreaking, by late 2020, it had become part of the TikTok culture to use this feature to close caption your own videos. This is both a courtesy to those with hearing challenges, but it also allows people to enjoy your videos while scrolling with the sound off. I would highly recommend that you do this, especially if the spoken content of your video is a big part of the experience. A specific subset of creative options are the engagement tools, and that's point eight. Like most platforms, there's a like button and a comment section, but it goes well beyond that. The three I would draw your attention to are features known as duets, stitches, and video replies. The easiest to explain is video replies, so we'll start there. This feature allows you, the creator of the original video, to reply to one of the comments with a new standalone video. The comment you're replying to is displayed on the screen and referenced in the caption so viewers can easily go back and watch the original video. Now, with a duet, your video plays in a kind of split screen mode with another video. The most common usage is when people film themselves reacting to or commenting on another video. But as the year went on, people got incredibly creative with the duets feature. Even entire new songs were created as someone would basically start a beat or play a line on a guitar or a piano, and then someone else would sing, and then someone else would add harmony, and then other people would add whole other instruments alongside of it. Others essentially made the video version of a Rube Goldberg machine where they would start some bit of action in their frame, and then it would carry over to someone else and what they add to the video, and on and on and on. Finally, there's the stitch feature, and this allows you to grab a short clip from another video and implant it in your video. It's similar to a duet, but it's not split screen. And there are tons of options for this feature, but one of my favorites is using it for Q&A. I follow the author, YouTuber, and science communicator Hank Green, and people love asking him questions in their own videos. And so he'll grab the clip of them asking the question and then use that as the beginning of his video answering those questions. Obviously, pastors and other spiritual leaders and communicators, we could do something similar to this rather easily. Of course, having all these creative tools at our disposal is great, but I know sometimes my biggest struggle is not how to use the tools, but it's coming up with the ideas. And this is where both the tools themselves and the culture of TikTok are a huge asset. And that's point number nine. TikTok has agreements with music licensing services that allow you to use clips of real songs as the soundtrack for your video. So you can use it as a traditional soundtrack, like the guy on the skateboard drinking cranberry juice with Fleetwood Mac in the background. But sometimes, too, the actual lyrics or music of the song provides the spark for the video. In addition, it's not just music that can be your soundtrack, but video creators can make the audio of their entire video available for use by others. You see, when you're scrolling TikTok, you'll notice in the bottom corner a little spinning circle, and that is where you can look at the audio of that video. When you tap on it, you can see what other people have done with the sounds from that video, or you can choose to use it yourself. In addition, there are always memes and challenges that are trending at the moment, and you can hop on those trends. You make your own version, and rather than being seen as copying or unoriginal, that is actually a really big part of TikTok culture. The 10th and final point is that the door for making an impact and building a following is open right now, but it will likely close over time. Now, it may be that the TikTok algorithm really is superior to other platforms and it'll continue to build effective connections if the content is good. But part of what has led to the degradation of Facebook and Instagram and our experiences with it is just the sheer volume of content. Because there's so much stuff being posted on these platforms every day and night, it can be hard to reach even the people who follow you. TikTok is much, much smaller than these giants, but it is growing rapidly. If you have any interest at all in becoming a creator for TikTok, the sooner you get started, the better. Get established, build momentum, stand out in your niche, and you'll be well positioned to meet the millions more who will join TikTok in 2021. And now, listeners, we want to hear from you. Have you tried TikTok? Are you thinking about trying TikTok? Why or why not? What more do you want to know about TikTok? Email us at podcast@umcom.org, and we just might share your answers on a future episode. And don't forget, you can always use that email, podcast@umcom.org, to let us know what you're thinking or give us suggestions for a future episode. We can't wait to hear from you. Finally, if you found this podcast to be helpful and you'd like to make sure other church communicators like yourself find this resource, the two biggest things you can do are share this episode with your friends and colleagues and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, or whatever service you're listening to us on right now. Thanks again for listening to the MyCom Church Marketing Podcast.